We're headed to the Maumee River today in northwest Ohio. It's beginning of May and the white bass run is super hot. So I'm going to show you guys how to target white bass with some crappie crankbaits. So stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of fun today. So here I'm sitting in the middle of a tributary on the Maumee River, and I'm fishing with this crankbait. It's a Crappie Max made by Bass Pro. One of my very favorite type of crankbaits to throw are these crappie crankbaits for multiple species, but my favorite is for white bass. That's a good one. I might say so myself. So there's one on the board for Kayak Wars. But in regards to tactics, my favorite thing to do to get these fish to bite is to actually cast downstream in the river and bring it parallel or back up river or upstream. And what that allows that bait to do is actually swim beside the fish that are heading upstream instead of running perpendicular of the fish. This allows some of the larger fish to grab a hold of that bait or entice them, and it's less work for them instead of cutting across the stream underwater. If you can imagine, if you were a fish, you would prefer your bait to come beside you and swim from behind you and forward. So all you have to do is just swim up there and grab it, as opposed to swimming from your left to your right and disappearing. I have noticed that my luck has increased tremendously by using this tactic, casting it downstream and bringing it parallel to shore. Here I'm untangling my rod. Another tactic is when you're retrieving, if you're in an area that has a rocky bottom and you're a tournament bass pro fisherman, I'm sure you've heard of Mike Iaconelli or Kevin Van Dam. And these two are connoisseurs of plugs, crankbaits, particularly Van Dam. He talks about making sure the lip comes in contact with the contour or the structure that you're fishing over. So for the river, it's mostly rock bottom. And I make sure that I keep the rod tip down as close to the water, sometimes a couple inches in the water, to make sure that I'm ticking the bottom of the river and that bait is bouncing off of the rocks. Because more often than not, as Van Dam and Iaconelli can tell you, these fish will be turned on whenever you bounce that plug off of structure or a rock. And this is just another prime example. So just to recap on one of my tactics, I like to take the plug and cast it downstream retrieving it upstream. This allows the plug time to stay within the strike zone of the fish, particularly the larger fish. And this also works more effectively, in my eyes, when the bite has started to taper down, as it has on this particular day later in the morning. So here I'm switching it up to a small, original, shad colored Rapala shad wrap just to get that bait just a pinch deeper than what I was fishing. I also noticed the water color was a lot clearer when I had paddled to a different location. So I figured I would try to match the hatch and go with more of a natural color. So this pretty much sums up my morning white bass fishing. I was only out for a couple hours. However, the fish just weren't there in the numbers that I had expected them to be. And this is primarily because the water was a lot lower in level than I had expected it to be. It was at 1900 cubic square feet, and on my best days, the water is typically 4,000 cubic square feet in discharge or higher, which would put the water at least 2 feet higher than it currently is. So I decided to switch species for the rest of the morning and tie on a bucktail to chase after some drum and maybe entice a couple white bass. Here's one of my favorite colors in the Northland brand of buckaroo bucktail jigs. And I'm using the same approach to catch the drum as I explained in one of my previous videos, which is to cast, let it drop to the bottom, and slowly twitch it in a horizontal fashion. Not so much pulling the rod in a vertical motion, but horizontal, and allowing it to sit after you've twitched it once, twice, or 3 times for at least 1 to 2 seconds. Well, that concludes this adventure on the Maumee River. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, just shoot them in the inbox. This is Mike with Team Dragon. Be safe and tight lines.